The phone rang at 9:47 a.m. on what should have been the best Tuesday of my life. Instead, it became the day everything I believed about family, fairness, and my own worth crumbled into dust. "Madison, this is Jennifer from HR. We need to talk." I was still in my pajamas, coffee mug halfway to my lips, staring out the window of my Chicago apartment at the morning rush hour traffic 20 floors below. The tone in Jennifer's voice made my stomach drop. Cold, professional, the kind of voice that delivers bad news. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. "About the promotion?" I asked, though part of me already knew this. Wasn't the congratulatory call I'd been expecting. "There's been a situation. Can you come in today? As soon as possible?" I set my mug down with shaking hands. "What kind of situation?" A pause. Long enough for my heart to start hammering against my ribs. "It's better if we discuss this in person, Madison. But I need you to know that some serious allegations have been brought to our attention regarding your conduct and reliability." The world tilted. Allegations, conduct, reliability. These words didn't belong in the same sentence as my name. I was Madison Chen, 29 years old, senior marketing coordinator at Henderson & Associates, and the most reliable person I knew. I'd never missed a deadline, never called in sick unless I was genuinely dying, and I'd spent the last 3 years building campaigns that increased our client retention by 40%. "I don't understand," I managed to say. "What allegations?" "We'll discuss everything when you get here. Can you be in my office by 11? I glanced at the clock. That gave me barely an hour to shower, dress, and mentally prepare for whatever nightmare was waiting for me. "Yes, I'll be there." The line went dead. I sat there in my kitchen, still holding the phone, trying to process what had just happened. Yesterday, I'd been on cloud 9. Michael Henderson himself had pulled me aside after the quarterly review meeting and told me I was being considered for the marketing director position. Not considered, practically guaranteed it, based on my performance reviews and the success of the Clearwater Hotels campaign I'd spearheaded. "Madison, you've earned this," he'd said, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile. "The board meeting is Thursday, but between you and me, it's just a formality. You've more than proven yourself." I'd called my parents that night, barely, able to contain my excitement. Marketing director at 29, a 6-figure salary, my own team, an office with actual windows. Everything I'd worked toward since graduating from Northwestern was finally within reach. And now, less than 18 hours later, Jennifer from HR was talking about allegations and conduct issues. I stumbled toward the bathroom, my legs feeling disconnected from my body. The face staring back at me in the mirror looked pale, confused, vulnerable. Dark circles under my eyes from staying up too late celebrating. My long black hair was a mess, and I had that hollow look of someone who'd just been sucker punched. The shower did nothing to clear my head. If anything, the hot water just gave me more time to spiral. What allegations? Who would make them? I ran through every interaction I'd had at work over the past few months, every email I'd sent, every meeting I'd attended. Nothing. There was nothing that could be construed as unprofessional or unreliable. Unless. The thought hit me like ice water. My sister Chloe had been acting strange lately, more secretive than usual, avoiding my calls, giving short answers when we did talk. She worked at Henderson & Associates, too, in the finance department, though we rarely crossed paths during the workday. Different floors, different worlds. But Chloe had always been competitive with me. Growing up in San Francisco, we'd been the classic overachiever siblings, both pushing ourselves to excel, both desperate for our parents' approval. The difference was that I'd learned to channel that drive into genuine hard work, while Chloe had always looked for shortcuts, angles, ways to get ahead without putting in the effort. when she'd gotten the job at Henderson and Associates 6 months. After I did, I'd been genuinely happy for her. I'd even put in a good word with the hiring manager in finance. Family supporting family, right? But lately, she'd been asking weird questions about my work. Casual things that didn't seem casual at all. How's the Clearwater campaign going? Are you working a lot of overtime? Have you been stressed lately? Is everything okay with your team? At the time, I'd thought she was just being a caring sister. Now, with Jennifer's words echoing in my head, those questions felt different, pointed, like she was fishing for something. I pulled on my best navy suit, the one I'd worn to every important meeting for the past 2 years. My armor, the fabric, felt wrong against my skin, too tight, too formal for this surreal morning. I checked my reflection one more time, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. The commute to downtown Chicago passed in a blur. Normally, I loved the train ride, watching the city wake up, mentally preparing for the day ahead. Today, every stop felt like a countdown to disaster. When the conductor announced, "Next stop Union Station," my palms were sweating. Henderson and Associates occupied floors 15 through 20 of a gleaming glass tower in the heart of the Loop. I'd walked through those marble-lined lobbies countless times, but today it felt like walking to my execution. The security guard who usually greeted me with a smile barely looked up from his newspaper. The elevator ride to the 17th floor stretched like eternity. When the doors finally opened, I could feel eyes on me immediately. Conversations stopped. People looked away. The usual morning buzz of activity seemed muted, artificial. Jennifer's office was at the end of a long hallway lined with abstract art that was supposed to inspire creativity, but always made me feel slightly nauseous. Her door was closed, which wasn't unusual, but the blinds were drawn, which was. I knocked, my knuckles barely making a sound against the heavy wood. "Come in." Jennifer Walsh was in her mid-50s, with steel gray hair pulled back in a bun so tight it probably gave her headaches. She'd been with the company for over a decade, had seen every kind of workplace drama imaginable, and had the poker face to prove it. She was sitting behind her desk, a manila folder open in front of her, reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. She looked up when I entered, and for just a moment, I saw something in her expression that might have been sympathy, but it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Please, sit down, Madison." I took the chair across from her desk, the same chair where I'd sat during my annual reviews, my promotion discussions, my salary negotiations. It feels different now. Smaller, like I was shrinking into it. Jennifer closed the folder and removed, her glasses meeting my eyes directly. "Madison, I'm going to be frank with you. We've received some very serious allegations about your work performance and professional conduct. Allegations that, if true, would disqualify you from the marketing director position and potentially put your current employment at risk." The words hit me like physical blows. I gripped the arms of the chair, trying to steady myself. "What allegations? From who?" "The information came to us through proper channels," Jennifer said carefully. "A colleague expressed concerns about your reliability, your ability to handle pressure, and some specific incidents that suggest you might not be ready for a leadership role." "What specific incidents?" My voice was getting higher, more desperate. "Jennifer, I don't understand what's happening here. My performance reviews have been excellent. I've exceeded every target, completed every project ahead of schedule. What? Incidents?" Jennifer opened the folder again, scanning the pages inside. "According to the report, you've been frequently absent from your desk during business hours, leaving early without authorization, and there have been concerns about your emotional stability under pressure. There's mention of you breaking down crying during team meetings, being argumentative with clients, and making errors in campaign materials that had to be corrected by others." I stared at her, my mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. None of it was true. Not a single word. Jennifer, I have never done any of those things. Never. My attendance record is spotless. I haven't missed a day of work in 8 months, and when I did, it was for food poisoning and I had a doctor's note. I've never cried in a team meeting in my life. I've never been argumentative with clients. This is insane. But even as I protested, a cold realization was settling in my stomach. Someone had painted a very specific picture of me as unreliable, emotional, and unprofessional. Someone who knew enough about my work to make the lies sound plausible. Someone who had access to details about my projects, my schedule, my responsibilities. Someone who worked here. Who made these allegations? I asked again, though I was already starting to suspect the answer. Jennifer hesitated. I can't reveal that information. But Madison, these concerns didn't come from just anyone. They came from someone who works closely with you, someone who would be in a position to observe your day-to-day behavior. The room started to spin slightly. There were only a handful of people who worked closely with me. My immediate team was small, 3 junior coordinators who reported directly to me, plus Sarah, my counterpart in digital marketing. We all collaborated regularly, shared workspace, and attended the same meetings. But none of them would do this. To me, they respected me, looked up to me even. I'd mentored each of them, helped them grow in their roles, fought for their raises and promotions. It didn't make sense, unless the person who'd made the allegations didn't work closely with me at all. Unless they'd fabricated their knowledge, created a false narrative based on whatever scraps of information they could gather. This is my sister, I said suddenly, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. This is Chloe. My sister Chloe Chen is in the finance department. Jennifer's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. A microsecond of recognition that told me everything I needed to know. Madison, I can't confirm or deny. It's her, isn't it? I was leaning forward now, my hands flat on Jennifer's desk. She's the one who made these allegations. She's the one who's trying to sabotage my promotion. I cannot reveal the source of the information, Jennifer repeated, but her voice had gone flat, professional. The way people sound when they're reciting policy instead of having a real conversation. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Why would Chloe do this to me? We were sisters. Yes, we'd always been competitive, but this was beyond competition. This was a character assassination. This was attempted career murder. And then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. 3 weeks ago, Chloe had mentioned seeing an opening in the marketing department, a director-level position. At the time, I'd been so focused on my own promotion that I hadn't paid much attention. But now, is Chloe being considered for the marketing director position? I asked. Jennifer's silence was enough. My sister hadn't just tried to destroy my reputation. She'd done it to clear the path for her own advancement. She'd lied about me, invented stories about my professional conduct, all so she could step into the role I'd earned through 3 years of exemplary performance. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. This wasn't just about a job. This was about trust, about family, about everything I'd believed about the person I'd grown up with, the person I'd helped get hired at this company in the first place. What happens now? I managed to ask. Jennifer's expression softened slightly. The board meeting has been postponed while we investigate these allegations. You'll remain in your current position, but the promotion is on hold indefinitely. I'm sorry, Madison. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. The room felt too small, too warm, like the walls were closing in. Can I see the specific allegations? The details of what she said? Company policy requires that we protect the confidentiality of all parties involved in personnel matters. All parties? I laughed. but it came out sharp and bitter. What about protecting me? What about the fact that someone is spreading lies about my work performance, and I don't even get to know exactly what they're saying? Jennifer looked genuinely uncomfortable now. Madison, I understand your frustration, but there are procedures we have to follow. The best thing you can do right now is continue doing the excellent work you've always done. Let your performance speak for itself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip her desk over and storm out of the building. Instead, I nodded stiffly and walked toward the door. Madison, Jennifer called out just as I reached for the handle. For what it's worth, I've always found you to be one of our most reliable employees. These allegations don't match the Madison Chen I know. It was meant to be comforting, but it just made everything worse. If Jennifer didn't believe the allegations, why wasn't she doing more to fight them? Why was she letting my sister's lies derail my career? I walked out of her office and down the hallway, past the abstract art that now looked like twisted shapes of betrayal, past the colleagues who were trying not to stare, past the life I'd been building for 3 years. When I reached my cubicle, I sat down at my desk and stared at my computer screen without seeing it. Around me, the office hummed with its usual activity. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, the low murmur of conversations and conference calls. It all seemed surreal. How could the world just keep spinning when mine had just exploded? My phone buzzed with a text message. For a wild moment, I thought, it might be Jennifer, telling me this had all been a mistake, that the allegations had been withdrawn, that my promotion was back on track. Instead, it was from Chloe. Hey sis, want to grab lunch later? I have some exciting news to share. I stared at the message until the words blurred together. She had some exciting news to share. My sister, who had just destroyed my career, wanted to celebrate with me. The audacity of it was breathtaking. I deleted Chloe's text without responding and spent the next hour staring at my computer screen, pretending to work while my mind raced through every interaction we'd had over the past few months. The more I thought about it, the more obvious it became. She'd been gathering intelligence, building a case against me piece by piece. The Clearwater Hotels campaign had been my baby from start to finish. I'd worked 16-hour days for 2 months straight, coordinating with designers, copywriters, and the client's demanding creative director. When it launched, it exceeded every metric we'd set. Revenue increased by 68% in the first quarter alone. But Chloe had been there for some of those late nights. She'd stopped by my desk around 8 or 9 p.m., claiming she was working late on quarterly reports. You look exhausted, she'd say. Are you sure you're handling all this okay? At the time, I'd thought she was being supportive. Now I realized she'd been documenting my stress levels, probably taking note of every moment I looked overwhelmed. The team meeting where we'd presented the campaign results had been one of the proudest moments of my career. Michael Henderson stood up and applauded. The entire room had been buzzing with excitement. But I remembered Chloe being there too, hovering near the back of the conference room. She didn't usually attend marketing presentations, but she'd claimed she wanted to support me. What she'd really been doing was watching for any sign of weakness, any moment she could twist into evidence of instability. I pulled up my email and started scrolling through the past 3 months of correspondence. Every message I'd sent, every project update, every client communication. My work spoke for itself. Detailed, professional, thorough. Never a missed deadline, never a complaint from a client, never an error that hadn't been caught and corrected before it mattered. How could Jennifer and the executive team take anonymous allegations over 3 years of documented excellence? My phone rang, jarring me out of my research. The caller ID showed my mom's number. Madison, honey, how are you feeling about the big promotion? Your father and I are so proud of you. I closed my eyes, fighting back the urge to burst into tears. My parents didn't know yet. In their minds, their eldest daughter was about to achieve everything she'd worked toward. Mom, I can't really talk right now. I'm at work. Oh, of course. I just wanted to tell you that Mrs. Patterson from next door asked about you yesterday. I told her about your promotion, and she said she always knew you'd do something special with your life. Ever since you were little, organizing those neighborhood fundraisers and, Mom, please, I really need to go. A pause. Madison, is everything all right? You sound upset. I looked around the office, at the colleagues who were trying not to stare, at the empty conference room where I should have been planning my transition into management. Everything's fine, I'll call you later. It wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. But I couldn't bear to explain to my mother that her youngest daughter had just stabbed her oldest in the back. Around noon, I decided I needed air. The office felt suffocating. Every whispered conversation felt like it was about me. Every glance from a coworker felt loaded with judgment. I grabbed my purse and headed for the elevator, planning to walk a few blocks and try to clear my head, the elevator doors opened on the 15th floor. Chloe stepped on. She was wearing a crisp white blouse and a navy pencil skirt, her long black hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like success, like someone who belonged in an executive role. It made me sick. Madison, she said, her face lighting up with what appeared to be genuine excitement. Perfect timing. I was just coming to find you. The elevator doors closed, trapping us together in the small space. I pressed the button for the lobby harder than necessary and stared straight ahead. So, Chloe continued, seemingly oblivious to my silence. I heard the most interesting thing this morning. Kevin in finance mentioned that there might be some changes coming to the marketing department, executive-level changes. I turned to look at her, studying her face. She was good. Her expression was perfectly innocent, curious, but not too eager. If I didn't know better, I might have believed she was just making conversation. What kind of changes? I asked. Oh, you know how rumors spread around here? Something about new leadership opportunities opening up. I was actually thinking... She paused, tilting her head thoughtfully. I've been getting a little bored with straight finance work. I think I might be ready for something more creative, more strategic. The elevator dinged softly as we passed the 10th floor. 9 floors to go. Like what? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too calm, too controlled. Well, marketing has always interested me, and I have a business background and analytical skills. Plus, I understand the company culture here better than most external candidates would. 8th floor, 7th floor. The marketing director position requires experience managing campaigns, client relationships, and creative teams, I said slowly. It's not something you just transition into from finance. Chloe laughed, a light musical sound that I'd once found endearing. Oh, Madison, you always overthink things. Leadership is leadership, right? The technical stuff can be learned. What matters is having the vision, the ability to inspire people, to handle pressure without getting overwhelmed. 6th floor, 5th floor, without getting overwhelmed. The phrase hit me like a slap. She was already talking like my job was hers, already painting me as someone who couldn't handle pressure. Besides, she continued, I think a fresh perspective might be exactly what the department needs. Someone who can bring new ideas, who isn't stuck in old patterns of thinking. 4th floor, 3rd floor. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her until she confessed. I wanted to scream at her to demand she explain why she was doing this to me. Instead, I watched the numbers tick down and tried to keep my breathing steady. That's an interesting perspective, I managed to say. I'm actually meeting with Jennifer from HR later today, Chloe said as we reached the lobby. Just to discuss some opportunities for internal advancement. You know how much the company values promoting from within. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Chloe stepped out first, then turned back to me with a bright smile. Oh, and Madison? Thanks, again for helping me get my foot in the door here. I know I couldn't have gotten this far without your recommendation. She walked away, her heels clicking confidently against the marble floor, leaving me standing in the elevator as the doors slowly closed again. I pressed the button for the 17th floor, my hands shaking with rage. She was thanking me. She was actually thanking me for helping her get into position to destroy my career. When I got back to my desk, I opened a new document and started typing. If Chloe wanted to play games, I could play games too. I began documenting every conversation we'd had, every question she'd asked, every time she'd shown up at my workspace or attended meetings where she didn't belong. I also started researching Chloe's qualifications. Her LinkedIn profile claimed she had extensive experience in cross-departmental collaboration and strategic planning. What it didn't mention was that she'd been in her current role for less than 2 years, had no management experience, and had never worked on anything remotely related to marketing or client services. But qualifications apparently didn't matter. If you were willing to lie about your competition, my computer pinged with a new email. The sender was Jennifer Walsh, and the subject line made my blood run cold. Follow-up discussion required. Madison, after our meeting this morning, I've been reviewing your personnel file and the allegations that were brought to my attention. I need to schedule another meeting with you tomorrow at 2 p.m. to discuss some additional concerns that have come to light. Please come prepared to address questions about your recent work performance, attendance, and professional conduct. You may bring a representative from HR or legal if you wish. Best regards, Jennifer Walsh, Human Resources Director, Additional Concerns. They weren't even done destroying me yet. I stared at the email until the words blurred together, then printed it out and shoved it into my desk drawer. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I would have to sit in that same chair and defend myself against more lies, more fabricated evidence of my supposed unprofessionalism. The afternoon dragged by in a haze of fake productivity. I answered emails, updated project timelines, attended a client call where I had to pretend everything was normal. But underneath the surface, I was falling apart. Around 4 o'clock, I saw Chloe walking past my cubicle area, heading toward the elevators. She was carrying a leather portfolio and wearing the kind of confident expression people have when they're about to get exactly what they want. I waited 5 minutes, then followed her. The elevator showed she'd gone to the 17th floor. To HR. To Jennifer's office, where she was probably spinning more lies about my character, adding new details to her fictional narrative about my incompetence. I took the stairs, climbing 2 flights as quickly as I could in heels. When I reached the 17th floor, I could see Jennifer's office door was closed, the blinds still drawn. I found a spot near the water cooler where I could see the hallway without being obvious about it. 20 minutes later, Chloe emerged from Jennifer's office. Even from a distance, I could see she was practically glowing. She walked down the hallway with the stride of someone who'd just secured her future. As she passed the water cooler, she noticed me and stopped. Madison, what are you doing up here? Meeting with the design team, I lied smoothly. You? Oh, just some routine HR stuff. You know how it is. She paused, studying my face. You look tired. Are you feeling okay? You've seemed a little off lately. There it was again. The subtle undermining, the careful suggestion that something was wrong with me. She was still building her case, still collecting evidence for whatever additional allegations she was planning to make. I'm fine, I said. Just busy with the Morrison account transition. The Morrison account? Chloe frowned. I thought Sarah was handling that transition. My stomach dropped. Sarah was handling the Morrison account transition. I'd misspoken, said the wrong project name, and Chloe had caught it immediately. Right, sorry. I meant the Peterson campaign. Long day. But the damage was done. I could see the wheels turning in Chloe's head, filing away this moment of confusion as more evidence of my declining mental state. Maybe you should take a long weekend, she said with false concern. Get some rest. You've been working so hard lately. I nodded and walked away before I said something I'd regret. But as I headed back toward the stairwell, I heard Chloe's heels clicking back down the hallway toward Jennifer's office. She was going back in, probably to report my confusion about the Morrison account, to add it to whatever file they were building. Against me. I stood in the stairwell for a long moment, gripping the metal railing until my knuckles went white. This wasn't just about a promotion anymore. Chloe wasn't content to simply beat me out for the marketing director position. She was trying to completely discredit me, to make sure I looked so unstable and unreliable that I'd be lucky to keep my current job. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Madison, this is Kevin from finance. Can we talk? It's about your sister. Meet me in the parking garage level B2 at 5:30. Come alone." I stared at the message, my heart racing. Kevin from finance. The same Kevin who Chloe had mentioned talking to about executive changes in marketing. Why was he reaching out to me? And why the Cloak and Dagger meeting location? But I already knew I was going to meet him. At this point, I needed any ally I could find, any information that might help me understand what Chloe was really up to. The rest of the afternoon crawled by. At 5:25, I took the elevator down to the parking garage. Level B2 was mostly empty, just a few cars belonging to people working late. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows between the concrete pillars, and the air smelled like exhaust and dampness. Kevin was waiting near the far wall, a thin man in his early 30s with nervous energy and wire-rimmed glasses. I'd seen him around the office but had never actually spoken to him. "Madison," he said as I approached. "Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "What's this about, Kevin?" He looked around nervously, as if checking to make sure we were alone. "It's about what your sister is doing, and I think you need to know that she's not working alone." "What do you mean she's not working alone?" My voice echoed slightly in the concrete parking garage. Kevin adjusted his glasses nervously. "Look, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I can't stand watching what's happening to you. Your sister approached me 3 weeks ago. She said she was concerned about you, that you'd been acting erratic, and she was worried about your mental health." The words hit me like ice water. "She what?" "She asked me to keep an eye on you, to report back if I noticed anything concerning. At first I thought she was just being a caring sister, but then..." Kevin pulled out his phone and showed me a series of text messages. She started asking very specific questions. I scrolled through the conversation, my hands trembling. Chloe had been systematically pumping Kevin for information about my work habits, my stress levels, even my lunch breaks. She'd asked him to note when I looked tired, when I seemed overwhelmed, when I stayed late or left early. "Kevin, why did you go along with this?" He looked ashamed. "Honestly, because she offered to put in a good word for me with management. I've been trying to get promoted for 2 years, and she said she had connections. But Madison, the things she was asking me to watch for, they were so normal. Everyone gets stressed during campaign launches. Everyone looks tired after working late. She was turning regular work behavior into evidence of instability." I handed his phone back, my mind racing. "Who else is she working with?" "That's the thing. Yesterday, I overheard her on a call with someone. She was in the break room at 15. Though she was alone, she was saying things like, 'The timeline is perfect,' and 'once the board sees the documentation, there won't be any question.' But here's the weird part. She mentioned having recordings." "Recordings of what?" "This is my sister," I said suddenly, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "This is Chloe. My sister Chloe Chen is in the finance department." Jennifer's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. A microsecond of recognition that told me everything I needed to know. "Madison, I can't confirm or deny. It's her, isn't it?" I was leaning forward now, my hands flat on Jennifer's desk. "She's the one who made these allegations. She's the one who's trying to sabotage my promotion. I cannot reveal the source of the information," Jennifer repeated, but her voice had gone flat, professional. The way people sound when they're reciting policy instead of having a real conversation. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Why would Chloe do this to me? We were sisters. Yes, we'd always been competitive, but this was beyond competition. This was a character assassination. This was attempted career murder. And then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. 3 weeks ago, Chloe had mentioned seeing an opening in the marketing department, a director-level position. At the time, I'd been so focused on my own promotion that I hadn't paid much attention. But now, is Chloe being considered for the marketing director position? I asked. Jennifer's silence was enough. My sister hadn't just tried to destroy my reputation. She'd done it to clear the path for her own advancement. She'd lied about me, invented stories about my professional conduct, all so she could step into the role I'd earned through 3 years of exemplary performance. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. This wasn't just about a job. This was about trust, about family, about everything I'd believed about the person I'd grown up with, the person I'd helped get hired at this company in the first place. What happens now? I managed to ask. Jennifer's expression softened slightly. The board meeting has been postponed while we investigate these allegations. You'll remain in your current position, but the promotion is on hold indefinitely. I'm sorry, Madison. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. The room felt too small, too warm, like the walls were closing in. Can I see the specific allegations? The details of what she said? Company policy requires that we protect the confidentiality of all parties involved in personnel matters. All parties? I laughed, but it came out sharp and bitter. What about protecting me? What about the fact that someone is spreading lies about my work performance, and I don't even get to know exactly what they're saying? Jennifer looked genuinely uncomfortable now. Madison, I understand your frustration, but there are procedures we have to follow. The best thing you can do right now is continue doing the excellent work you've always done. Let your performance speak for itself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip her desk over and storm out of the building. Instead, I nodded stiffly and walked toward the door. Madison, Jennifer called out just as I reached for the handle. For what it's worth, I've always found you to be one of our most reliable employees. These allegations don't match the Madison Chen I know. It was meant to be comforting, but it just made everything worse. If Jennifer didn't believe the allegations, why wasn't she doing more to fight them? Why was she letting my sister's lies derail my career? I walked out of her office and down the hallway, past the abstract art that now looked like twisted shapes of betrayal, past the colleagues who were trying not to stare, past the life I'd been building for 3 years. When I reached my cubicle, I sat down at my desk and stared at my computer screen without seeing it. Around me, the office hummed with its usual activity. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, the low murmur of conversations and conference calls. It all seemed surreal. How could the world just keep spinning when mine had just exploded? My phone buzzed with a text message. For a wild moment, I thought, it might be Jennifer, telling me this had all been a mistake, that the allegations had been withdrawn, that my promotion was back on track. Instead, it was from Chloe. Hey sis, want to grab lunch later? I have some exciting news to share. I stared at the message until the words blurred together. She had some exciting news to share. My sister, who had just destroyed my career, wanted to celebrate with me. The audacity of it was breathtaking. I deleted Chloe's text without responding and spent the next hour staring at my computer screen, pretending to work while my mind raced through every interaction we'd had over the past few months. The more I thought about it, the more obvious it became. She'd been gathering intelligence, building a case against me piece by piece. The Clearwater Hotels campaign had been my baby from start to finish. I'd worked 16-hour days for 2 months straight, coordinating with designers, copywriters, and the client's demanding creative director. When it launched, it exceeded every metric we'd set. Revenue increased by 68% in the first quarter alone. But Chloe had been there for some of those late nights. She'd stopped by my desk around 8 or 9 p.m., claiming she was working late on quarterly reports. "You look exhausted," she'd say. "Are you sure you're handling all this okay?" At the time, I'd thought she was being supportive. Now I realized she'd been documenting my stress levels, probably taking note of every moment I looked overwhelmed. The team meeting where we'd presented the campaign results had been one of the proudest moments of my career. Michael Henderson stood up and applauded. The entire room had been buzzing with excitement. But I remembered Chloe being there too, hovering near the back of the conference room. She didn't usually attend marketing presentations, but she'd claimed she wanted to support me. What she'd really been doing was watching for any sign of weakness, any moment she could twist into evidence of instability. I pulled up my email and started scrolling through the past 3 months of correspondence. Every message I'd sent, every project update, every client communication. My work spoke for itself. Detailed, professional, thorough. Never a missed deadline, never a complaint from a client, never an error that hadn't been caught and corrected before it mattered. How could Jennifer and the executive team take anonymous allegations over 3 years of documented excellence? My phone rang, jarring me out of my research. The caller ID showed my mom's number. "Madison, honey, how are you feeling about the big promotion? Your father and I are so proud of you." I closed my eyes, fighting back the urge to burst into tears. My parents didn't know yet. In their minds, their eldest daughter was about to achieve everything she'd worked toward. "Mom, I can't really talk right now. I'm at work." "Oh, of course. I just wanted to tell you that Mrs. Patterson from next door asked about you yesterday. I told her about your promotion, and she said she always knew you'd do something special with your life. Ever since you were little, organizing those neighborhood fundraisers and— Mom, please, I really need to go." A pause. "Madison, is everything all right? You sound upset." I looked around the office, at the colleagues who were trying not to stare, at the empty conference room where I should have been planning my transition into management. "Everything's fine. I'll call you later." It wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. But I couldn't bear to explain to my mother that her youngest daughter had just stabbed her oldest in the back. Around noon, I decided I needed air. The office felt suffocating. Every whispered conversation felt like it was about me. Every glance from a coworker felt loaded with judgment. I grabbed my purse and headed for the elevator, planning to walk a few blocks and try to clear my head, the elevator doors opened on the 15th floor. Chloe stepped on. She was wearing a crisp white blouse and a navy pencil skirt, her long black hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like success, like someone who belonged in an executive role. It made me sick. "Madison," she said, her face lighting up with what appeared to be genuine excitement. "Perfect timing. I was just coming to find you." The elevator doors closed, trapping us together in the small space. I pressed the button for the lobby harder than necessary and stared straight ahead. "So," Chloe continued, seemingly oblivious to my silence, "I heard the most interesting thing this morning. Kevin in finance mentioned that there might be some changes coming to the marketing department, executive-level changes." I turned to look at her, studying her face. She was good. Her expression was perfectly innocent, curious, but not too eager. If I didn't know better, I might have believed she was just making conversation. "What kind of changes?" I asked. "Oh, you know how rumors spread around here? Something about new leadership opportunities opening up." I was actually thinking— She paused, tilting her head thoughtfully. "I've been getting a little bored with straight finance work. I think I might be ready for something more creative, more strategic." The elevator dinged softly as we passed the 10th floor. 9 floors to go. Like what? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too calm, too controlled. Well, marketing has always interested me, and I have a business background and analytical skills. Plus, I understand the company culture here better than most external candidates would. 8th floor, 7th floor. I hung up before she could protest and immediately felt guilty. But I couldn't handle my mother's expectations on top of everything else. The weight of disappointing her, of explaining how the promotion she was so proud of had been stolen by her other daughter, it was too much. I arrived at the office early, hoping to catch up on actual work before facing whatever fresh hell Chloe had prepared for me. The building was mostly empty, just security guards and a few dedicated workaholics. The quiet was almost peaceful until the elevator stopped on the 15th floor. Chloe stepped on, perfectly dressed as always, carrying a leather briefcase I'd never seen before. "Madison, you're here early. I guess we both have big days ahead. Of us." I stared straight ahead, not trusting myself to speak. The confined space felt toxic with her presence. "I have my final interview this morning," she continued conversationally. "For the marketing director position. Isn't that exciting? They're really fast-tracking the process." My hands clenched into fists. Final interview. They weren't just investigating the allegations against me. They were already moving forward with replacing me. Of course, I told them I'd need some time to transition out of finance properly. I wouldn't want to leave my current team hanging. She paused, glancing at me sideways. "I hope whoever replaces you in your current role is as dedicated as you've been." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She wasn't just taking my promotion, she was already planning my departure, talking about my replacement as if my termination was a foregone conclusion. The elevator dinged softly as we reached my floor. I stepped out without a word, but Chloe's voice followed me. "Madison, I really do hope you understand that this isn't personal. It's just business." The doors closed before I could respond, which was probably for the best, because what I wanted to say would have gotten me fired on the spot. I sat at my desk, trying to focus on emails, but the words blurred together. Around me, the office began to fill with my colleagues, people I'd worked alongside for 3 years, people who probably thought I was having some kind of breakdown. The whispers seemed louder today, the glances more pointed. At 10 a.m., I got a text from Kevin. "Emergency. Meet me in the supply closet on 16. Now." I found him among the boxes of printer paper and office supplies, his face pale with anxiety. "Madison, they moved up your meeting. It's at 11, not 2. And it's not just Jennifer anymore. They've got someone legal there, too." My stomach dropped. Legal meant they were building a case for termination. "How do you know this?" "Chloe's been texting someone all morning. I saw her. Phone when she was getting coffee. The messages mentioned accelerating the timeline and having all documentation ready." Kevin ran his hands through his hair. "Madison, I think they're planning to fire you today." The room seemed to tilt. I grabbed the edge of a storage shelf to steady myself. "Did you find out who she's working with in HR?" "That's the other thing. It's not Jennifer. It's David Martinez, the assistant HR director. I saw them talking in the parking garage yesterday evening. And Madison, David's been asking questions about you around the office. Casual stuff, but now it makes sense." David Martinez. I barely knew him. He'd been hired about a year ago, handled mostly policy and compliance issues. But if he was feeding information to Chloe, then she'd had inside knowledge of HR procedures from the beginning. "There's something else," Kevin said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "This morning, I overheard David on a call. He mentioned having audio documentation of problematic behavior. Madison, I think they're planning to play recordings in your meeting." The supply closet felt airless. In less than an hour, I would be sitting across from Jennifer, David, and a legal representative while they played doctored recordings of me, presented fabricated client complaints, and destroyed my career with lies. I can't do this, I said, the words coming out as barely a whisper. Kevin, I can't sit in that room and let them tear me apart with fake evidence. So don't. I looked at him, confused. Don't go to the meeting. Buy yourself time to figure out how to fight back. If I don't show up, they'll just fire me for insubordination. They're going to fire you anyway, Kevin said bluntly. At least this way, you're not giving them the satisfaction of watching. You defend yourself against lies. He was right. The meeting was a formality, a chance for them to document my responses before delivering the predetermined verdict. But if I didn't show up, if I forced them to explain my absence, maybe I could create enough confusion to buy time. I need to get into David's office, I said suddenly. If he's working with Chloe, there might be evidence there. Emails, recordings, something that proves this is all fabricated. Kevin stared at me. Madison, that's breaking and entering. If they catch you? If they catch me, what? They fire me? They're already doing that. I felt a surge of desperate energy, the kind that comes when you have nothing left to lose. Kevin, this isn't just about me anymore. If they can destroy my career with lies, they can do it to anyone. Someone needs to expose what they're doing. Okay, Kevin said after a long pause. Okay, but you'll need a distraction, something to get David away from his office. Can you handle that? I can try. There's a system error I've been putting off reporting, something that would require David to come down to finance immediately. But Madison, you'll only have a few minutes. I nodded, my mind already racing through the logistics. David's office was on the 17th floor, near Jennifer's. If I could get in there while he was dealing with Kevin's emergency, I might find the evidence I needed to prove Chloe's scheme. When? I asked. Kevin checked his watch. Your meeting is at 11. If we do this at 10:45, it'll explain why you're not there. I'll call David about the system emergency, and you go in. It was risky, potentially career-ending in a completely different way. But sitting passively while they destroyed me with lies felt worse than fighting back, even if it meant taking desperate measures. Do it, I said. We left the supply closet separately, Kevin heading back to finance while I returned to my desk. I had 30 minutes to prepare for what might be the most important 30 seconds of my professional life. I cleared my computer, backed up my personal files to a flash drive, and wrote a quick email to my team explaining that I might be unavailable for the rest of the day. If this went wrong, I wanted to leave my work in good shape for whoever came after me. At 10:40, I walked to the bathroom near the elevators and waited. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Sending the email now. 5 minutes later, I saw David Martinez hurrying toward the elevators, carrying a laptop and looking stressed. Kevin's system emergency had worked. I took the stairs to the 17th floor, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. David's office was halfway down the hall from Jennifer's, his door bearing a nameplate that read, Assistant Director, Human Resources. The hallway was empty. I tried the door handle, locked, as expected. But David had left in a hurry, and sometimes people forget things when they are rushing. I felt along the top of the door frame and found what I was looking for, a spare key, exactly where my own boss kept his. David's office was small and cramped, filled with filing cabinets and stacks of policy manuals. His computer was password protected, but his desk was covered with papers. I quickly rifled through them, looking for anything with my name or Chloe's. In the second drawer, I found a file labeled Wilson, Madison, Personnel Investigation. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing page after page of documentation that took my breath away. There were printed emails between David and Chloe dating back 3 weeks. Detailed plans for building a case against me, discussion of which colleagues to approach for statements, even a timeline for the investigation process. But the most damning evidence was at the bottom of the file. A digital recorder and several CDs labeled with dates and times. One was labeled M. Wilson, client call 315, and another M. Wilson, Team Meeting 318. My blood ran cold. They had actually recorded me, somehow capturing private conversations and meetings. But as I looked closer at the dates, I realized something that made me dizzy with rage. These recordings were made after Chloe had already started her campaign against me. She hadn't captured evidence of problematic behavior. She'd recorded normal work conversations and was planning to edit them or take them out of context to support her allegations. Heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly shoved the file into my purse, along with the recorder and CDs. Whatever was on these recordings, I needed to hear it before they used it against me. I locked David's office and hurried back to the stairwell, just as I heard his voice returning down the hallway. My phone showed 11:05. I was officially late for my own termination meeting, but for the first time in days, I felt like I had a chance to fight back. I locked myself in a bathroom stall and, with trembling hands, inserted the first CD into the portable player I'd grabbed from David's desk. The recording quality was crystal clear, too clear for a casual conversation. This had been deliberately captured with professional equipment. My own voice filled the small space. I just don't think we should rush the Peterson timeline. The client specifically asked for extra review time, and pushing too hard could damage the relationship. It was from a team meeting 2 weeks ago, a perfectly reasonable discussion about project management. But as I listened, I realized how easily this could be twisted. Taken out of context, it could sound like I was being difficult, resistant to meeting deadlines, or overcautious to the point of damaging client relationships. The second recording was even more chilling. It was me on a phone call with a client, discussing revisions to their campaign. I'd been professional, collaborative, working through their concerns with patience and expertise. But there were moments, natural pauses, small sighs, the sound of me organizing papers that could be edited to make me sound distracted or unprofessional. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. "They're looking for you. Jennifer sent someone to find you. David's back and furious. Thinks someone was in his office." I quickly pocketed the recorder and CDs, my mind racing. The evidence I'd stolen proved the conspiracy, but it also made me a thief. If I tried to use it now, they could dismiss everything I said and prosecute me for breaking into David's office. But I couldn't let them destroy me with fabricated evidence while I stayed silent. I walked out of the bathroom and straight to the elevator, pressing the button for the 20th floor, executive level. If HR was compromised, I would go directly to Michael Henderson. The CEO might be my only chance for a fair hearing. The executive floor was a different world from the rest of the building. Polished marble floors, mahogany paneling, and oil paintings that probably cost more than my annual salary. The receptionist, a woman in her 50s with perfectly styled silver hair, looked up as I approached. "I need to see Mr. Henderson. It's urgent." "Do you have an appointment, Miss Madison Chen? I work in marketing, and I need to speak with him about a serious personnel matter." She glanced at her computer screen, then at me with growing concern. "Miss Chen, I have a note here that you're supposed to be in an HR meeting. They've been looking for you." "That's exactly what I need to talk to Mr. Henderson about." Before she could respond, I heard my name being called from behind me. I turned to see Jennifer Walsh stepping off the elevator, her face flushed with anger. "Madison, where have you been? We've been waiting for you for 20 minutes. I need to speak with Mr. Henderson first. You need to come with me right now. This kind of behavior is exactly what we're concerned about." "Jennifer." The voice that interrupted her was calm but commanding. Michael Henderson himself had emerged from his office, drawn by the commotion. At 62, he still had the presence that had built Henderson and Associates from a small Chicago firm into a national powerhouse. "Mr. Henderson," Jennifer said, clearly flustered. "This is Madison Chen. She missed her scheduled HR meeting and—" "Madison," he said, his sharp blue eyes studying my face. "You wanted to see me?" "Yes, sir. It's about the allegations against me and the marketing director position." I have evidence that there's been a conspiracy to sabotage my career using fabricated evidence. Jennifer's face went pale. Mr. Henderson, Madison is clearly under a great deal of stress. She's making wild accusations. Let her speak, Henderson said firmly. He gestured toward his office. All of you, inside, now. Henderson's office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago. His desk was the size of a small conference table, and the walls were lined with awards and photos from 30 years of business success. Sit, he commanded, and we all took chairs arranged in a semicircle facing his desk. Jennifer looked like she wanted to bolt for the door, but she remained frozen in place. Madison, you have 5 minutes to explain what you mean by conspiracy and fabricated evidence. I took a deep breath and pulled out the files I'd taken from David's office. Mr. Henderson, my sister Chloe has been systematically building a false case against me with help from David Martinez in HR. They've recorded my private conversations without consent, recruited colleagues to spy on me, and created fake documentation to support allegations that I'm unprofessional and unreliable. I spread the papers across Henderson's desk, the emails between Chloe and David, the timeline for the investigation, the notes about which colleagues to approach for statements. Jennifer leaned forward, her face now completely white. Mr. Henderson, these documents were obtained illegally. Madison broke into David's office. Is that true? Henderson asked me directly. Yes, sir, it is. But only because I knew they were planning to fire me today based on fabricated evidence, and I needed proof of what they were doing. Henderson picked up one of the emails, reading it carefully. His expression grew darker with each line. This email discusses managing the narrative and ensuring the right outcome. Jennifer, did you know about this correspondence? Mr. Henderson, I was only following proper HR protocols. Answer the question. Did you know David Martinez was coordinating with an employee's family member to build a case against that employee? Jennifer's silence was enough. Henderson pressed a button on his desk phone. Carol, get David Martinez up here immediately. And call legal. I want someone from our employment law team here in 10 minutes. While we waited, Henderson continued reading through the documents. The office was so quiet I could hear the traffic 20 floors below. Jennifer sat rigid in her chair, probably calculating how to minimize her own liability. I clutched the recorder in my purse, knowing the worst was yet to come. David Martinez arrived first, looking confused and slightly out of breath from hurrying upstairs. His confusion turned to horror when he saw the papers spread across Henderson's desk. David, Henderson said without preamble, explain to me why you've been secretly coordinating with Chloe Chen to build a case against her sister. Mr. Henderson, I can explain. Can you explain this email where you discuss accelerating the timeline and having all documentation ready? Can you explain why you're planning to use secretly recorded conversations as evidence in a personnel investigation? David's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The recordings were for quality assurance purposes. Quality assurance? Henderson's voice was dangerously quiet. You recorded an employee's private conversations without her knowledge or consent, then planned to use those recordings to justify her termination. That's not quality assurance, David. That's entrapment. The legal representative arrived, a sharp-faced woman in her 40s who took one look at the documents and immediately started taking notes. As she read through the evidence, her expression grew increasingly grave. Mr. Henderson, she said finally, this is a significant liability exposure for the company. Secret recordings, conspiracy between HR and a family member, potential wrongful termination. We're looking at multiple violations of employment law. What about the allegations against Madison? Henderson asked. Are any of them substantiated? The lawyer flipped through more papers. Based on what I'm seeing here, the allegations appear to have been fabricated as part of this conspiracy. The client complaints mentioned in the documentation aren't backed up by any actual client communications. The performance issues seem to contradict Madison's official performance reviews, which are excellent. Henderson turned to me. Madison, do you have those recordings? With shaking hands, I pulled out the CDs and portable player. Mr. Henderson, these recordings were made without my knowledge. They're normal work conversations that could easily be edited or taken out of context to make me look unprofessional. He inserted the first CD and listened for several minutes, his expression growing increasingly disgusted. This is a normal client discussion. Professional, collaborative, exactly what I'd expect from a senior marketing coordinator. Mr. Henderson, Jennifer interrupted desperately, there may have been irregularities in the process, but we were acting on legitimate concerns. Legitimate concerns? Henderson's voice rose for the first time. You were acting on fabricated complaints created by an employee's sister who wanted her job. There's nothing legitimate about any of this. He stood up, his tall frame towering over all of us. David, you're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out of the building, and you can expect to hear from our legal team about potential criminal charges for illegal recording. David started to protest, but Henderson cut him off with a gesture. Jennifer, you're suspended pending a full investigation into your role in this conspiracy. If we find that you knowingly participated in this scheme, you'll be terminated as well. Jennifer's carefully constructed composure finally cracked. Mr. Henderson, please, I was just trying to handle the situation properly. The proper way. To handle this situation would have been to investigate the allegations thoroughly instead of fast-tracking a termination based on fabricated evidence. Henderson turned to me, his expression softening slightly. Madison, I owe you an apology. This company failed you in the most fundamental way. Not only are you keeping your current position, but the marketing director promotion is yours, effective immediately. The words hit me like a physical blow. After everything I'd been through, everything I'd lost sleep over, everything I'd feared, I was getting the promotion after all. Thank you, Mr. Henderson, I managed to say. Don't thank me. You earned this position through 3 years of excellent work. What happened here was an attempted theft of your career, and I won't stand for it. He paused, looking out the window at the Chicago skyline. There's one more matter to address. Your sister is scheduled for a final interview this afternoon. I assume you'd like to be present for that conversation? I thought about Chloe, probably sitting in the lobby right now, confident that her scheme had worked, ready to step into the role she'd stolen from me. Yes, sir. I would very much like to be there for that. The elevator ride down to the 17th floor felt surreal. 20 minutes ago, I'd been a woman facing career destruction. Now I was the newly appointed marketing director, riding down to confront the sister who'd tried to destroy my life. Henderson had insisted that security escort David Martinez out immediately. I watched through his office windows as 2 guards flanked David while he packed his personal items into a cardboard box. His face was ashen, his hands shaking as he tried to maintain some dignity in front of his former colleagues. The whispers had already started spreading through the office. People love nothing more than watching a spectacular downfall. Jennifer had been given 30 minutes to brief her replacement on urgent matters before beginning her suspension. She'd avoided eye contact with me entirely, but I could see the fear in her posture. She knew her career at Henderson & Associates was likely over, and word would spread quickly through Chicago's tight-knit corporate community. In a city where reputation was everything, she'd become unemployable. But it was Chloe I was thinking about as the elevator descended. According to Henderson's assistant, she'd arrived 15 minutes early for her 2 p.m. interview, dressed immaculately in a charcoal suit I'd never seen before. She was probably sitting in the reception area right now, reviewing her talking points, confident that the marketing director position was already hers. The elevator stopped on the 15th floor, and Kevin stepped on. His face lit up when he saw me. Madison! I heard what happened upstairs. The whole finance department is buzzing about David getting escorted out by security. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, I said, allowing myself to smile for the first time in days. I got the promotion, Kevin. I'm the new marketing director. His face broke into a genuine grin. That's incredible. I can't believe they actually exposed the whole conspiracy. It's not over yet, I said as we reached the 17th floor. Chloe's here for her interview. She has no idea that her entire scheme has been exposed. Kevin's expression grew serious. What are you going to do? Henderson wants me to be present. When they tell her, I think she deserves to know exactly how thoroughly she's failed. The conference room where executive interviews were conducted was at the end of the hallway, a space I'd been in many times for client presentations and strategy meetings. Today, it would serve as the scene of my sister's public humiliation. Henderson was already there, along with Margaret Wilson, the VP of Marketing who would now be my direct supervisor. Margaret had always been supportive of my work, and the relief on her face when she saw me was evident. Madison, she said, standing to shake my hand. I'm so sorry about what you've been through. I had no idea there was a conspiracy against you. When Michael told me what really happened, I was horrified. Thank you, Margaret. I'm just glad the truth came out. Henderson checked his watch. Chloe should be here any minute. Madison, I want you to understand that what we're about to do isn't about revenge. It's about making sure she understands that there are consequences for attempting to destroy someone's career through fraud and deception. Before I could respond, there was a knock on the door. Henderson's assistant entered with Chloe right behind her. My sister looked perfect, as always. Her hair was styled in a professional chignon, her makeup flawless, her suit expertly tailored. She carried a leather portfolio that probably contained fabricated examples of her marketing experience and glowing references from people who'd never actually worked with her. When she saw me sitting at the conference table, her confident smile faltered for just a moment. But she recovered quickly, her expression shifting to one of concerned confusion. Madison? What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in your meeting with HR? The innocent confusion in her voice was masterful. If I didn't know better, I might have believed she was genuinely surprised to see me. Please sit down, Miss Chen, Henderson said formally. We have several things to discuss. Chloe took the chair across from us, setting her portfolio on the table with careful precision. Of course, I'm excited to discuss how I can contribute to the marketing team's success. Henderson opened the file folder in front of him, the same one that contained all the evidence of her conspiracy. Before we discuss your qualifications, I think we should address some irregularities that have come to our attention regarding this interview process. Irregularities? Chloe's voice carried just the right note of confusion. She was still playing her role, still pretending to be the innocent candidate who'd simply applied for an open position. Miss Chen, are you familiar with David Martinez from our HR department? I watched Chloe's face carefully. There was the slightest tightening around her eyes, a barely perceptible tension in her jaw, but her voice remained steady. I may have met him once or twice. Henderson and Associates is a large company, but I try to be friendly with colleagues from all departments. Henderson slid one of the printed emails across the table. This is an email exchange between you and Mr. Martinez, discussing strategies for building a case against your sister. The timestamp shows it was sent 3 weeks ago. Chloe's mask finally began to crack. She stared at the email, her mouth opening and closing as she searched for an explanation. I don't understand how you got access to my private correspondence. Your private correspondence? Margaret interjected. Miss Chen, this email was found in an official company file related to a personnel investigation. Mr. Martinez was using his position in HR to help you sabotage your sister's career. That's not... I was just concerned about Madison's well-being. She seemed stressed, and I thought... You thought you'd secretly record her conversations? Henderson interrupted, producing the CDs from David's office. You thought you'd recruit colleagues to spy on her? You thought you'd fabricate client complaints? The blood drained from Chloe's face. She looked at me for the first time since sitting down. and I saw something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Genuine fear. Madison, you don't understand. I was trying to help you. You were working too hard, burning yourself out. I thought if you took a step back, you were trying to help me? I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. By destroying my reputation? By lying about my work performance? By stealing my promotion? I wasn't stealing anything. I earned this opportunity. With what qualifications? Margaret's voice was sharp. Miss Chen, your background is in finance. You have no marketing experience, no management experience, and no relevant education. The only reason you were being considered for this position was because you convinced HR that your sister was unfit for it. Henderson leaned forward, his expression stern. Miss Chen, what you've done isn't just unethical. It's potentially criminal. Secret recordings without consent, conspiracy to defraud, defamation of character. Our legal team is reviewing whether to press charges. Chloe's carefully constructed composure finally shattered completely. You can't do this to me. Madison, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. We're family. The word family hit me like a slap. After everything she'd done, she was still trying to use our relationship to manipulate the situation. Family? I stood up, my voice rising. Family doesn't try to destroy each other's careers. Family doesn't lie and cheat and conspire to steal what the other person has earned. You're not my family, Chloe. You're a stranger who happens to share my DNA. Tears began streaming down her face, but I felt no sympathy. These weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration at being caught. Madison, please. I made a mistake. I can fix this. We can work together. Work together? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The way we worked together when you pumped Kevin for information about me, the way we worked together when you convinced David to help you build a false case against me, the way we worked together when you recorded my private conversations. Henderson stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. Miss Chen, obviously you will not be receiving the marketing director position. In fact, your employment with Henderson and Associates is terminated immediately. Security will escort you out of the building. You can't fire me. I haven't done anything wrong at my job. I'm a good employee in the finance department. You used your position here to gain access to confidential information and personnel files, Margaret said coldly. You conspired with an HR representative to commit fraud? Your termination is effective immediately, and you can expect that any future employers will be informed of the circumstances. The door opened, and 2 security guards entered, the same guards who'd escorted David out an hour earlier. Chloe looked between them and us, her face a mask of desperation. This isn't over, she said, her voice shaking with rage. Madison, this isn't over between us. Yes, it is, I said quietly. It's completely over. The guards escorted her out, and I could hear her voice echoing down the hallway as she continued to protest her innocence. But the sound faded quickly, and then there was silence. Henderson turned to me, his expression softening. Madison, I know this couldn't have been easy for you. Having a family member betray you like this? She stopped being family the moment she decided to destroy my career, I said. I'm just glad the truth came out before she succeeded. Margaret gathered her papers, preparing to leave. Madison, why don't you take the rest of the day off? You've been through enough stress for 1 week. We can start discussing your transition into the director role tomorrow. Actually, I said, I'd like to stay. I want to meet with my new team, start planning our next quarter strategy. I've been waiting 3 years for this opportunity, and I don't want to waste another minute. Henderson smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him all day. That's exactly the attitude I'd expect from our new marketing director. After they left, I sat alone in the conference room for a few minutes, processing everything that had happened. Through the window, I could see the Chicago skyline stretching out under a gray October sky. This morning, I'd looked at that same view as a woman facing professional destruction. Now I was looking at it as the marketing director of a Henderson and Associates. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Saw them escort Chloe out. She looked furious. "How are you holding up?" I typed back. "I'm good. Better than good. Want to grab dinner tonight? I'm buying. We're celebrating." Celebrating what? Justice. And the fact that hard work and honesty actually won for once. I gathered my things and headed toward the elevator, planning to spend the rest of the afternoon meeting with my new team and reviewing the projects I'd now be overseeing. As I waited for the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished metal doors. I looked tired, but I also looked strong, victorious. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside, pressing the button for my floor. No, for my department. Because that's what it was now. My department, my team, my responsibility. As the elevator descended, I thought about calling my parents to tell them what had happened. But that conversation could wait. They'd need time to process the fact that their youngest daughter had tried to destroy their oldest, and I'd need time to figure out how to explain it. For now, it was enough to know that the truth had won. That 3 years of hard work hadn't been erased by lies and manipulation. That sometimes, when you fight back against injustice, you actually win. The elevator doors opened on my floor, and I walked toward my team's workspace with the confidence of someone who'd just learned that integrity and perseverance could triumph over deception and betrayal. It felt like coming home. But even as I settled into my new role, even as I began planning the future of the marketing department, I knew this wasn't really the end of my story with Chloe. Her final words echoed in my mind. "This isn't over between us." I believed her. Chloe wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. She'd been building her identity around getting what she wanted through manipulation and shortcuts her entire life. Having that worldview shattered in such a public, humiliating way would leave scars, but for the first time in days, I wasn't afraid of what she might do next. I'd faced her worst attack, and not only survived but emerged stronger. Whatever came next, I'd be ready for it. The afternoon flew by in a whirlwind of meetings, introductions, and planning sessions. My new team was excited about the leadership change. Apparently, rumors about my qualifications and work ethic had been circulating for months. They were relieved to be working under someone they respected, rather than whoever Chloe would have turned out to be as a leader. As the day wound down and the office began to empty, I found myself alone at my new desk, a real office with windows, and a door that closed. On the wall was a frame containing the company's mission statement, and below it, a smaller frame with a quote, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." I thought about that quote as I looked out at the Chicago evening skyline. Today had been about more than getting a promotion or exposing a conspiracy. It has been about learning that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when the people fighting against you are the ones who should love you most. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was my mother. "Madison, honey, I just got the strangest call from Chloe. She was crying and saying something about being fired and that you'd ruined her life. What's going on?" I closed my eyes, knowing this conversation was inevitable, but wishing I could postpone it a little longer. "Mom, it's a long story. Can you and Dad meet me for dinner tomorrow? There's a lot I need to explain." "Madison, you're scaring me. What happened between you and your sister?" I looked out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness, at the life I'd built through hard work and determination, at the future that was finally back within my reach. She tried to destroy my career, Mom, and she almost succeeded. The silence on the other end of the line told me that on some level, my mother already knew this was possible. Maybe she'd always known what Chloe was capable of, but had chosen to look the other way. "We'll talk tomorrow," I said gently. "I love you, Mom, But right now, I need to focus on moving forward. After I hung up, I sat in my new office for a few more minutes, savoring the quiet and the sense of vindication. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, difficult conversations with my parents, and the ongoing work of building a career based on merit rather than manipulation. But tonight, I was simply a woman who'd fought for what was right and won. 3 months later, I stood in the same conference room where Chloe had been exposed, but everything felt different. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating charts and graphs that showed our marketing department's best quarterly performance in 5 years. My team sat around the table, energized and confident, presenting campaign results that exceeded every target we'd set. The Meridian Hotels campaign increased their bookings by 82%, Sarah announced, clicking to the next slide. And client satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. I looked around the table at faces that had become familiar over these past months. These weren't just my employees anymore. They were my team, people who'd rallied behind my leadership and proven that authentic collaboration could achieve incredible results. Outstanding work, everyone, I said as the presentation concluded. Take the rest of the morning to celebrate. You've earned it. As the team filed out, chatting excitedly about their success, Margaret Wilson approached me. Madison, Michael wants to see you upstairs. Something about the board meeting next week. My stomach tightened slightly. Board meetings still made me nervous, even though I'd been attending them regularly as marketing director. But the anxiety was different now. It was the productive nervousness of someone who cared about doing their best work, not the paralyzing fear of someone under attack. Henderson's office looked exactly the same, but my relationship with the space had transformed completely. Instead of sitting across from his desk as a woman defending herself against lies, I now occupied one of the chairs at his conference table as a respected member of his leadership team. Madison, he said as I entered, excellent presentation to the board last month. The marketing department's turnaround has been remarkable. Thank you, sir. Having a team that trusts their leadership makes all the difference. He nodded thoughtfully. That's actually what I wanted to discuss. We're expanding into the West Coast market next year, and I need someone to head up the new Los Angeles office. It would mean a significant promotion. Regional Marketing Vice President. You'd be building the department from scratch, recruiting your own team, establishing our presence in a completely new market. The opportunity was staggering. VP level at 31, my own office to build, unlimited potential for growth. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at it immediately. But now I found myself pausing, considering all the implications. That's an incredible opportunity, Mr. Henderson. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. But Madison, I want you to know that this offer is based purely on your performance and potential. You've earned this through your work, nothing else. As I walked back to my office, I reflected on how much my perspective had changed. The old Madison would have seen this as validation, proof that I'd finally achieved the recognition I deserved. The new Madison saw it as simply another step in a career I was building on my own terms. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Coffee later? I have news. I smiled and typed back, absolutely. 3 p.m.? Kevin had become one of my closest friends. Over these past months, his willingness to help expose Chloe's conspiracy had cost him. David Martinez's firing had created tension in the finance department, and some people blamed Kevin for not staying loyal to his colleague. But his integrity had ultimately been recognized, and he'd recently been promoted to senior financial analyst. At 3 o'clock, I met Kevin at our usual coffee shop, a small place 2 blocks from the office where we could talk freely without worrying about office politics. So, what's the news? I asked as we settled into our corner booth. Kevin's face was serious. It's about Chloe. I heard through a mutual friend that she's been struggling to find work. Word got around about what happened at Henderson & Associates. I sipped my coffee, processing this information. Part of me felt a flicker of something, not quite sympathy, but an awareness that her actions had consequences beyond just losing the promotion she'd tried to steal. "How do you feel about that?" Kevin asked. "Honestly, I don't know. 3 months ago, I would have said she deserved whatever happened to her. Now," I paused, trying to articulate feelings I hadn't fully examined. "Now, I think she was always trying to win a game where she didn't understand the rules. She thought success was about manipulation and shortcuts, because that's what worked for her growing up. That doesn't excuse what she did to you. No, it doesn't. But it helps me understand why she did it. And understanding it makes it easier to let go of the anger." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "You've let go of the anger?" "Most of it. Carrying that rage was exhausting. It was taking up space in my head that I needed for building my career and my life. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what she did. It's about freeing myself from the weight of her choices." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching. The Chicago afternoon bustle past the windows. Finally, Kevin spoke again. "Have you talked to your parents recently?" That was a more complicated question. The conversation with my parents 3 months ago had been one of the most difficult of my life. Explaining Chloe's betrayal, watching my mother's face crumble as she realized the extent of her youngest daughter's deception, seeing my father's quiet disappointment, it had been heartbreaking for everyone involved. "We talk every week now," I said. "It's different than before, but it's more honest. Mom's been going to therapy to understand how her parenting might have contributed to Chloe's behavior. Dad's been more supportive than I expected. And Chloe? I haven't spoken to her since the day she was fired. She sent a few texts in the first month. Angry ones, then apologetic ones, then angry again. I never responded. Some relationships can't be repaired, and that's okay." Kevin nodded. "You seem peaceful about it." "I am. For the first time in my life, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm not chasing approval or validation. I'm just doing good work with people I respect, and that's enough." My phone rang. My mother. I'd been expecting her to call. "Hi, Mom." "Madison, honey. How did the meeting with Mr. Henderson go?" I'd told my parents about the Los Angeles opportunity the night before. "He offered me the position, regional VP, building the West Coast office from scratch." "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. Your father and I are so proud of you. When do you start?" "I haven't decided if I'm taking it yet." A pause. "What do you mean? It sounds like an amazing opportunity." "It is. But it would mean moving to Los Angeles, starting over in a new city." "I'm happy here, Mom. I have a team I care about, friends, a life I've built. Success isn't just about climbing higher. Sometimes it's about knowing when you're in the right place." Another pause, longer this time. "Madison, are you sure you're not turning this down because you're afraid? After everything that happened with Chloe?" "Mom, what happened with Chloe taught me that I'm stronger than I thought. It didn't make me afraid of taking risks. It taught me to take the right risks for the right reasons. If I take this job, it'll be because it's what I want, not because I feel like I have to prove something." "You're right. I'm sorry. I worry that I pushed both of you girls too hard to achieve, and look what happened." "Mom, you didn't make Chloe choose deception over hard work. That was her decision. And you didn't make me choose to fight back with honesty and integrity. That was mine. We're both responsible for our own choices." After I hung up, Kevin and I finished our coffee in comfortable silence. As we walked back toward the office, he asked, "So what are you going to tell Henderson?" "I'm going to take the job," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. Not because I need to prove anything, but because building something from scratch sounds like exactly the kind of challenge I want. Los Angeles is going to be lucky to have you, and Chicago will survive without me. That's the difference between this decision and everything Chloe did. I'm not trying to tear anyone else down to build myself up. That evening, I called Henderson and accepted the position. The conversation was brief, professional, focused on logistics and timelines. As I hung up, I felt a calm satisfaction rather than the manic excitement I might have expected. I walked to my apartment window and looked out at the Chicago skyline, the same view I'd stared at during those dark days when I thought my career was over. The city looked the same, but I was completely different. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, I thought it might be Chloe, but the message was from someone I didn't recognize. "Madison, this is Jennifer. Walsh. I wanted to apologize for my role in what happened to you. I've been going to therapy and working to understand how I let myself be manipulated into participating in that conspiracy. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time. Jennifer's. Suspension had turned into termination when the investigation revealed the full extent of her participation in Chloe's scheme. Like Chloe, she'd found it difficult to find new employment in Chicago's corporate community, but unlike Chloe, Jennifer seemed to be taking responsibility for her choices. I typed back, "Thank you for reaching out. I hope you're able to find peace and move forward." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it wasn't cruelty either. It was an acknowledgement that people could change, that accountability was possible, and that sometimes the best response to someone's apology was simply to wish them well from a distance. As I prepared for bed that night, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this point. 6 months ago, I'd been a woman whose identity was built around proving herself worthy. I'd worked harder than everyone else, achieved more than anyone expected, but I'd never felt secure in my own worth. Chloe's betrayal had forced me to discover something I'd never known, that my value wasn't dependent on anyone else's recognition. That integrity and hard work had worth beyond external validation. That sometimes the people who try to tear you down actually end up making you stronger. In Los Angeles, I would build a new team, develop new strategies, face new challenges. But I would do it as someone who knew exactly who she was and what she stood for. Someone who had been tested in the worst possible way and emerged not just intact, but better. The last thing I did before falling asleep was delete Jennifer's number from my phone, not out of anger, but out of recognition that some chapters of your life need to stay closed in order for new ones to begin. Tomorrow would bring new preparations for the move, new conversations with my team about the transition, new opportunities, to prove that success built on integrity was the only kind worth having. But tonight, I was simply a woman who had fought for what was right and won. Not just the promotion, but something much more valuable, the knowledge that she was strong enough to handle whatever came next. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.